Properties Committee. We do have a quorum. In the next section, we'll go around and introduce our committee members. Our first order is to approve the minutes of our last meeting in May, the May 6th meeting. Do we have any changes, corrections? If not, I'll move them approved. All right, thank you. All right, we have some administrative duties to go over. First is the use of the microphone. For those of you who've been on the committee, you just push the button down at the bottom, and the green light goes on. That means it's on. And be sure to pull it toward you, the microphone. You don't want it too far away, otherwise we can't hear you. And if somebody's in the back and can't hear us up front, wave, so we'll know that they either don't have their mic on or they don't have it close enough. Okay. And be sure to shut it off when you're not talking. So first I want to go around and start with committee introductions. I'll start with Sherry on the phone. Sherry, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay.
I have it on mute, so I may have a delay when I answer.
All righty. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sherry Jones, and I'm in Sholo right now. And I've been on the property committee last year and in the past, and I really look forward to working again on this committee.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah, I'm Bob Hartley. I'm right now in Frisco, Colorado, and I was on the Properties Committee last year and looking forward to another good year with the Properties Committee.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll start with Linda.
I'm Linda Murin, and this is my first experience on a committee here.
Welcome. Marley?
I'm Marley Kistler, and this is my second year here. Looking forward to being on the committee again.
I'm Barb Sloan. This is my second year on this committee.
I'm Sharon Weinblatt. This is my first year on this committee this time. I was on this committee in a couple of years, in past years.
I'm Tom Jones. I was on the Charter Clubs Committee last year, been on previous properties committees, and I'm looking forward to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Russ Boston, staff member.
Carl?
Carl Wilhelm, staff member, project manager.
We have Pete Finelli, our CFO, is here, and any other staff?
Yeah, our new accounting manager, Liz Swan, started in early August.
Hopefully everybody heard you. It's hard without a microphone. And then we have General Manager in the back, Bill Schwinn. We have Katie O'Grady and Martin. And Don, our great facilities person who keeps us all tidy and neat and makes sure all of our equipment works. Thank you. Welcome. Did I miss? Whoops. Least but not forgotten is our great president, Sue Fitzsimon, board president. Sorry, Sue. All right. Karen has provided a copy of the full committee roster with everybody's email and phone numbers on it. If something isn't correct, please let Karen know. or me, either way. And then we have the fun time of asking somebody to serve as the committee secretary. My suggestion this year, since we had some issues with the person who volunteered to be secretary had been out because of illness and family members ill, that it might be good that this year we rotate. And so each meeting, as long as we have identified the person the previous meeting, that they would be the one taking the minutes. It really helps now that we have the YouTube videos, so if you can't catch up on something or what's said or a motion in the meeting, you can always go back and look at the YouTube videos. So, do I have a volunteer for this meeting to be secretary? Not everybody jump at once.
Roberta?
Yes?
Sherry. And I did it a lot last year as a fill-in, and I would be happy to take the minutes today. And I would also be happy to work with anybody else who does it on a rotating basis.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sherry. Because if you don't volunteer, I'll volunteer somebody. I'm really good at that. All right, we do have a cheat sheet in here for accessing BoardDocs. There's also information that Karen provided for the secretary. Sherry, Karen provided the sign-in sheet. I'll make a copy and email that to you so you know everybody that was here, including staff. And right now we have 11 audience members on, listening through YouTube. So, all right. Okay. If you're not, who's on the committee is not familiar using BoardDocs? Linda, do you know how to use it? Okay. Yesterday was my first experience. Okay. All right, well, there is a cheat sheet that Karen provided on using BoardDocs. Also, like I said, if you need more information about what the committee did, the nice thing now, we do have the YouTube videos to review. And if you're unable to come to the meeting, please let me know so you can be an excused absence. Then you can always review the YouTube videos to see what the committee did. I forgot to mention, we have Jim Fraser. He's unable to be here today because of recent surgery. So hopefully he'll be at the next meeting. All right. All right, our next item on the agenda is 3.06, review a consensus and recommendation concept. In the governing board manual for committee members, on page 9, it mentions that members' input at a meeting is vital, but there are limitations to keeping meetings orderly. And this is something I want to stress for this committee. Members should speak only after being recognized by the chairperson. I know last year I'd go to call on somebody and somebody would jump in. So to keep it moving, especially since people are listening on a phone or through YouTube, it makes it easier if you contact me if you want to speak and I recognize you. So we only make recommendations to the governing board. We don't vote on something it's only as a recommendation, it's not as, this is what we recommend and that's what it becomes. It has to go to the governing board, to the workshop, and then to the regular meeting for voting. We're supposed to come to a consensus, which means a majority opinion, but in most cases, it can be maybe you have one or two members who don't agree, but we try and work through the issues so we do have a consensus before we make our recommendation. And like I said, you should have reviewed the committee members' manual that's up on the Rec Center website. So the main part of the committee bylaws, the Rec Center bylaws that affect us, is policy statement C3. Bring that up. I'm not going to read every line. You have a copy, and it's up online on BoardDocs under policies. But basically, our committee, the exciting part is when we get to take our tours, which we'll talk about later, and staff, including especially Carl and Russ, make their recommendations, and we take those recommendations and we process them and put them out to the governing board, and hopefully, we were lucky last year, most of ours got accepted, so. And I'm very proud to say that the Beardsley Center is no longer the stepchild of the rec centers. So, all right, I gotta go through all that. I did, under policy reviews, last committee, we did update FAO2, the facilities one, and let me bring that up here. Donations. I always have a problem with this word, memorization and naming guidelines. The FAO2, our version of it, basically at the end said that these were going to be stored and with the general manager. They're now going to be put as an appendix to the RR&Ps, since most of these naming right issues and donations and so forth come at the club level. So that's already been done. This committee does not have to vote on that. We also have the association approved single event commercial sponsorship. That's been all updated again in the revised edition of the RR&Ps. So when we have our discussion on that issue, that will come up. And then we get to move on to the chartered clubs RR&Ps. Everybody should have a copy, either online or with them. I'm not going to have this committee do 44 pages of review, every single line. I don't think we have to do that, since a lot of the issues are affect at the club level and not that would affect properties. Okay, so most of the updates that were put in the RR&Ps have to do with the change in tax status that some of the clubs have to do because they were selling products or they had different types of sponsorships. And again, that does not affect properties. So, like I said, I'm going to go through fairly quickly. The preamble, there are changes there that do not affect us. Page 2.
Roberta?
Is there a question? Yes.
This is for my own clarification. On the first page, under B, it talks about Internal Revenue Exempt Code 501c4. That is for the Rec Center Corporation?
Yes.
Okay. And I noticed that in this that they explain what 501c7 requirements are and 501c3 requirements are, but this just says that clubs are expected to comply with 501c4. And I may have missed it, but I didn't see any explanation of what those requirements are.
Mr. Schwinn, can you explain that?
Short answer, no. We can certainly make that comment and carry that forward into the upcoming workshop. I was not privy to the language that's being changed here, but clubs must comply with internal revenue exemptions or the exempt code for C4 that governs the association and any tax codes applicable to a particular club. So be it, if you'd like to see the definition of a C4 added to that, we can certainly do that. But by and large, the clubs that operate, not so much under the umbrella of us, but they're independent clubs, they are typically C7s and C3s. And so the C4 really wouldn't apply to the chartered clubs per se. And that would be my only guess as to why the definition there doesn't exist, because it really doesn't apply to the clubs. They're C7s and 3s primarily.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Bill from the committee?
No, there is some debate as to whether or not the clubs, can perform as C4s under the umbrella of our organization. But the IRS has put a hold on the reclassification of those clubs until further notice due to their lack of, staffing to go through the 400 and some odd thousand clubs that have recently transferred over to the C4 level. And so there's obviously there's criteria that you have to apply to your club to see if it even fits under that category. We're being told by the tax advisors that we've been talking to that most of our social clubs here, craft clubs and the like, would not qualify as C4s due to the fact that they're pretty much educational-based and or HOA-based qualifications. So again, C7s and C4s, or C7s and C3s are where the clubs typically land.
All right, so I don't think we need to take a vote to add that definition.
That's totally up to you.
We'll recommend it off, see if at the governing board workshop, whether that's an issue. All right, we're up to definitions. Page 3. I don't think there's any issues there that affect us. 4 and 5, again, those are financial issues for the club. Moving on, page 6 and 7, I think we're okay. On chapter 1, page 8, there's no changes. 9, 10, just some minor ones. 11, 12, they removed information. Most of the changes did affect removing reference to the village store, since we're now going to have most of that taken care of by the consignment shop at Pora. So 12, 13, we can move through, 14, and 15. There has been some discussion at several of the meetings, both the charter clubs on the 17th and the one yesterday on the 31st, about the 75% limit and keeping records of that for the club participation. There is new software coming that will help the clubs to keep track of that. And because some clubs, especially some of the larger ones, have their own systems. Unfortunately, there are some other clubs that are large clubs that still do it manually. So this will be a great help for them. But keeping track of who comes to a meeting or who comes to an event 4 times a year, because we have some clubs where they don't have enough membership and to justify, a lot of this has to do with space utilization, which we do get involved in. But this new software will help determine whether we have a club that has outlived its space and needs more space, or a club that perhaps could use a smaller room and that larger space be used by another group. So, but this is a good step forward. So moving on, page 16, nothing. 17, 18, 19. If anybody has any questions along the way, let me know. One of the things I asked the chair of the Chartered Clubs Committees to make sure we had a good distinction between, in the RR&Ps, between whether somebody is a rec card holder but not a member of that club. Because a lot of the information that was there earlier, it was hard to tell, like, you have to have a host to bring you to a club. Well, if you're new to Sun City West and you don't know anybody, and you read in the rec center news that this particular club is having a general meeting and you'd like to attend, well, how are you going to come if you don't have a host? So they did make the distinction, definitely in the RR&Ps, between a non-member of the club, but they're still have a rec card, versus somebody who's from the outside the community, whether it's a guest of somebody who might be visiting, or there's somebody attending an event and they don't live here. So I think that they've done a good job of fixing up a lot of that language in the RR&Ps.
Roberta?
Yes.
Me again. I think we're on page 20.
Yes.
Okay. Number 7, in the modifications, it talks about non-resident card holder. Should that be non-recreation?
That was
holder?
that was one of the things that I asked about. Is a non-recreation card holder guest? So you do have people who live here that it might be renters, but they don't have a rec card. They would fall under this category.
What is a non-resident cardholder in that same,
Right, but no, it says non-recreation card holder.
in the red portion?
No, 7,
So, okay.
non-resident card.
Okay, non-resident. Well, they only have a guest pass. And that's a little bit different than somebody who's living here or somebody who's renting. But if you have you're visiting your aunt and uncle here, and they get you a guest pass. But otherwise, you might just have somebody who says one of the big clubs or dance clubs is having a dance, and they bring their relative who's visiting. They don't necessarily have a guest pass. Okay, all right. A lot of these are at the club level. I think where it's became such a big issue is that you have some of these clubs that were advertising in the paper, and to have people come, and we had people coming from around the surrounding area to make up the numbers so they could justify their space. And I think this is supposed to take care of some of that.
Roberta?
Yes.
Excuse me, this is Sherry Jones.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Could you please ask the people to say their name before they ask their question?
Sure.
And to please speak up a little louder. I'm having trouble hearing. I couldn't hear the last person.
Yes, Sharon. That was Sharon Weinblatt.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Under Section F, under reciprocity, that's only with Sun City now. But contrary to rumors that reciprocity had been eliminated, that's not true. All right. Moving on, page 21. Clubs aren't supposed to sell anything. Moving on, page 22. 23. 24. Yeah, this brings up sponsorship and signage policies, which I discussed earlier. Policy FA 7 and 10. This is where that document is now going to be kept with the RR&Ps as an appendix. And 10 has to do with single event commercial members sponsorship. Moving on to page 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31 is changes in the tax status. There was some discussion at charter clubs, Sue, about it only says charitable or educational. I don't know if that's on the workshop discussion. Yeah, you better get to a mic.
I believe when Casey explained the other option, she just was not recommending that and didn't feel that that was something that we would get into. It was dealing with athletic events that just didn't seem to fit. It was something dealing with children. So we chose to just stick with those two
Okay,
categories instead.
all right, thank you. All right, that was 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. So property and equipment, this is our section. There were no real changes to that except for numbering. I think one of the good things that has been clarified on page 41, it says, added all capital project requests over 5,000 must go through Charter Clubs Committee. So that's going to be our process. They go through the charter clubs before they come to properties. Last time, it seemed to be confusion. Sometimes it came to properties, then went to chartered clubs. I think this is a much smoother process by having it go to the chartered clubs. Do we have a process out there, Carl, if it's an individual wanting some sort of change at a facility that's not part of a club? We do.
Yes, so that would not fall under the CR 13 process that is in the chartered clubs, RR&Ps. And if an individual member has brought something to the table, they've generally either, it's due to a complaint form or it's due to an informational form that they've given to a monitor or a rec center manager or higher up, and it gets discussed immediately, either with that individual and because sometimes somebody might just ask for an additional parking spot, and we can give them the understanding right there on the spot on to why that wouldn't get facilitated or why we would consider that as a good idea. So, so I would say generally if just a member shows up and has an interest in bringing something to the table, it's put in the hands of a staff member and then carried through Russ and then to myself.
Okay. Thank you. Sure, go ahead, Barb.
All right, I have a quick question. Barb Sloan, I have a quick question on this. I think this is a good thing to insert in here. The question is, it says if it's over $5,000, it has to go through the Charter Club Committee first to determine needs versus wants. Will it stop there if there's an issue of needs versus wants, or is it going to run through all the different committees before a decision is made? The charter, okay, so let's say a project comes to the Charter Club Committee and it's determined that this is a want of a club. The club still has it in their head that nope, this is a need, so that it funnels now down to us next, the property committee, and we have to determine needs and wants. Every committee determines needs and wants, or does that just stop at Charter Club Committee?
Well, I think we all know that, if somebody's persistent enough that if the chartered clubs has given it a reasonable evaluation and not given a recommendation to the governing board, that club does have the right to come here and discuss it as well. I think judgment is going to be the answer to that, so, because it is a recommendation. I mean, this committee could view it from a different perspective of, you know, the need or the want. So if it's something that needs to be replaced due to age, yeah, it might have started as a want, but when we value it from a properties perspective, we see that it's 20 years old and maybe it is a need and should be considered by us, so.
Okay, and it still goes, this is Barb Sloan again, still goes through the CR 13 process before it hits the committees, has to be voted on by the membership to move it forward, to come to you?
If it becomes a capital project,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
If it's deemed in the end that it's a club funded, it doesn't quite, it still goes into the capital budget because all funds come
Yeah.
from the rec centers.
Yeah,
Yes.
and because it's over if it's over $5,000.
That is correct, yeah.
That's the benchmark.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Moving on to page 42. And the remainder, 483, so forth, are all having to do, being removed because of the village store no longer being under the auspices of the rec center. So, there any other comments on the RR&Ps? If not, do we agree and take consensus to make the recommendation to send them off to the governing board workshop? So we need a motion.
Barb Sloan, I make a motion that we send the Charter Club RR&Ps as a property committee on to the governing board for approval process.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Marley Kistler, and I'll second it.
Okay, Marley seconds. Okay. I'm going to do a roll call vote. All right. Barb Sloan,
Yes,
Marley,
Yes,
Sherry Jones,
Yes.
okay,
And can you tell me who made the motion? I didn't get the name.
Barb Sloan.
Barb Sloan seconded it?
no, Barb made
I made
the
the
motion, Marley seconded.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So are you voting to support consensus to recommend this?
Yes, I am.
All right. Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. Linda?
With the addition of the definition on the 501c4 added, just because of the recall that just took place that had it as a for-profit, and from what I understand, it's a nonprofit, from what I heard this morning.
I thought we did not have a motion on that.
I thought it could be put in if it was requested.
But I thought the general manager made it clear that it didn't apply. Okay,
Okay, then we'll say yes.
all right. I mean, I can bring it up for discussion at the workshop. Yeah.
Well, I just think we're all under the opinion now that a C4 is for profit. Like I say, we just had a petition that everybody signed stating that it was for profit that went through the rec center. We had a vote. So I think it really needs to be clarified so the community understands.
Bill Schwinn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. 501c4s are not for profit. They are nonprofit organizations. And listening to what you were bringing forward today, I think the definitions regarding the criteria for these 3 specific type of nonprofit agencies should be posted somewhere. So whether they're in the appendix in this document, in the RR&Ps or what, but I think a definition of a C3, C4, and C7 would be, I think, a good touch. And I think we could make that recommendation at the workshop or otherwise moving this thing forward. But I think that would help clear a lot of things up. All clubs that we're recommending here are nonprofit. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you.
You still have a question?
Well, I'm still not sure why a recall was accepted as a petition that stated that a 501c4 was for profit if it is not.
I can't answer that.
I don't know if that's what the petitioners were saying. I do think they were implying that the artisans were making a profit from the village store, which put the 501c4 status of the rec centers. There was a concern there because that's not an appropriate use under what we have. That's my understanding.
All right, Tom?
Tom Jones, yes.
Okay. So we have consensus, and we'll move the, revise our R&Ps off to the rec center workshop. Thank you. Coming up. All right, so get back to my agenda. Finance report. Nope.
No, you're on 5.
I'm missing there. Update on facility and capital projects. Carl?
601 tour schedule?
Okay, so I've made up a schedule. I actually mirrored last year's schedule. So I'm proposing we start on October 5th. We also have a board tour as well. So I mixed, matched, and skipped some dates. I did do a back-to-back on Beardsley. So we'll do properties tour, then we'll just hang out and do the other one right after. That ought to be fun. And I am eliminating the Metal Club from the tour, being that it's undergoing such extensive work. So I will shoot that. Beardsley will all be done by the time we tour. So we'll be able to produce some type of a light show for you. So I will get that out to everybody after the meeting today.
Okay, great, thank you.
So they're always going to be on Tuesday?
I've got Tuesday, Thursday, Thursday. Just like last year.
Okay.
Same as last year.
Okay.
And again, this is a suggestion, so if it doesn't work for you guys, we can work it. It's fluid.
I would like to mention, right off the back of Russ there, that the schedule that he did work on, though, definitely takes in consideration of all the other committees that we're involved in, too. So, thank you.
And then you have the rec center, the board, governing board tours. All right, moving on to difference between capital and maintenance projects. Carl, you want to do that?
The difference between capital and maintenance projects. So, first of all, my direct report, Russ Boston, is the head of facilities maintenance. He has facilities supervisor, Byron Jones, and a staff of approximately 13 individuals that maintain our facilities. And they do that through a process of receiving maintenance problem sheets, and they attack those sheets and make sure that our facilities look amazing each and every day, and so forth. So that is the side of maintenance. Capital projects are ideas that come from our community, our clubs, our governing board, that go into a discussion process of all committees, budget and finance, properties and charters, and then get discussed at governing board workshops and finally approved in a budget process by the governing board. A capital project is defined anything $5,000 or greater and has a life expectancy of over 5 years. So those items are generally managed by myself, but we do have department heads like Todd Patty in environmental and golf that has capital projects. You have staff leads, senior leadership department heads like Barry in the sports pavilion, Katie O'Grady. So all departments have a capital opportunity, but it also follows the same process of getting approved by the governing board. So that's really the difference between capital and maintenance. Would you agree, Russ?
All right, thank you. So now we have our update on facilities and capital projects. Oh, one of the things I skipped over was reporting timeline. We need our recommendations by the November meeting, correct? Pete?
I think I'll help answer that. So Russ, when is our last tour?
Yeah, so it would be our November meeting?
That is correct, yep.
All right.
And I generally take our walks very seriously, so if I feel like the committee has made a strong recommendation during that walk, I probably have put some hands and feet to that idea in advance. So you don't have to worry about time frames because, one, we walked it last year. I can't imagine that we find anything so grand or spectacular that it can't be solved in that time frame. Okay?
All right, thank you. Now, finally, update on facilities and capital projects. Carl, you want to go first?
Properties Committee, Facilities and Capital Projects Report, June 21 through September 2nd, 21. So I've included everything that from our last meeting to today. I'd like to start off with R.H. Johnson, the Metal Shop addition. The facility is closed. Currently, APS has provided a design clearance for a new electrical feed and provided the dates of next week, 9/6 through 9/10, to disconnect the primary electric from the service panel before foundation can begin. This project is currently on hold due to this reason, and we are waiting for APS. With that, the fact that we started in last June on this project technically, we have had many members that have been inquiring about the delay in the construction. So we did put out a press release. I would like to read that so that people viewing online can hear this. The Capital Projects Manager Carl Wilhelm, in cooperation with the Metal Shop leadership team, closed the metal shop in June of '21 to begin relocation of equipment and demolition of existing structures, of which was completed successfully by late June. Project manager then began July 6th, '21 with the general contractor schedule, beginning preparation for the site of the new building components. Prior to breaking ground, we blue staked, we call before we dig, and private locating, which was completed, and the results locating one of the primary electrical feeds was outside of the 12-foot APS electrical boundary. This primary feed is currently located inconveniently under the future foundation's footings and requires disconnect by APS, also resulting in APS providing a new design criteria for the primary feed. APS project representative provided new design and specifications clearance July 22nd, but have made it clear to project manager and general contractor that the APS planning department is backlogged 6 weeks and cannot provide electrical disconnect until September 6th through the 10th. Please understand we are doing all we can to overcome this delay and that the general contractor is also eager and ready to begin the construction. So I know that was a lot, but I do believe that we are ready to start the project next week due to APS's schedule. So moving on, the library had new interior automatic door replacements completed on 6/21. The social hall hardwood sand and finish project was completed on July 14th of '21. Platform tennis courts resurfacing was completed 7/28 of '21. The village courtyard restrooms countertop replacement project was completed 8/31 with the new tops, and facilities maintenance is currently installing the new faucetry. Over at Palm Ridge, the parking lot mill and asphalt replacement project completed 6/18 of '21, 1 week ahead of schedule. Parking lot and walkway lighting and wiring replacement. The parking lot portion of this project was completed on 4/16, and facilities maintenance in conjunction with the electrical vendor is currently in progress of doing new foundations, and the vendor has provided all the new light fixtures. So as time permits, we will continue that project and get the walkway lighting completed. At Beardsley, the park walkway ADA ramps, we had an ADA compliance request to put some ADA ramps where the members come in through the fence gates to access the park events. So we installed 2 new ramps. That was completed 6/24/21. Last year, the Properties Committee requested some dance floors, and that project was completed on 7/20 of '21. We had a park electrical renovation, which carried over even into the model railroad area of Beardsley. That project is complete, and APS is energizing the system today. We will test that system throughout the end of the week, and by next week, we should have a fully operating new electrical system in our park. That includes a light cloud system, so that when the event is over, staff is able to electronically control and turn on new lighting. When we do a tour over there, I'll make sure that I show you guys all that. It's a pretty nice renovation that we did to the park, and we won't be stealing power, if you will, or blowing circuits from the buildings any longer, so. Swim and fitness, at Beardsley, the pool lighting renovation began Monday, 8:30, and is in progress. We expect that to be approximately 2 weeks with the vendor, and then a week or a week and a half with facilities maintenance on doing repairs to where the old lighting used to be. Over at Kuntz, the parking lot and walkway lighting replacement project is in progress. It began on 8/19. The front parking lot is complete. They are working on the rear parking lot today. As soon as they're done with that, they'll move on to doing walkways and wall sconce lighting. So when we walk Kuntz, you'll also notice that we have modernized all the interior courtyard lighting. A little bit of request from the design committee. So I think you'll be pleased to see what's going to happen there, and a few weeks we'll be done with that project. And then today, Women's and Boomers Club room, the flooring is being replaced, and that should be done next week. Over at Deer Valley Pro Shop, we had a couple projects. Patio shade canopy was completed 7/19. It expanded their patio twice the size, and it has a nice fabric shade canopy and a new pavered area for seating and recreation. And then we had a bit of an emergency project for asphalt repairs. And we took the asphalt out of the trash storage area and converted it to concrete because the trash truck consistently damages the asphalt. And then finally, Echo Mesa Pro Shop parking lot got a new seal and stripe that was completed on 7/16. So it's been a busy summer, and we have a lot coming up, a lot of projects. If you watch on the e-news, the publications for project timelines, pretty soon we have the R.H. Johnson flooring project starting on September 27th. You will see a couple weeks of closure, basically September 27th through October 8th. And in that time frame, we will demo all of the fitness side flooring. This is a fiscal year 2021 project carryover. So we'll demo all the flooring over there for the new slip-resistant flooring. And we'll do some repairs to the pool deck outside during that closure. Any other maintenance issues at that time will be addressed. Some cleaning. And after that 2-week closure is over, then behind curtains or behind a plastic cover beyond the monitor's booth, the vendor will just be installing the new flooring. So that area will be closed, but the pool and the lobby will be reopened. When we get to the outside restrooms and locker area, we'll do another closure. We'll facilitate any more projects that need to be done in a 2-week closure time frame outside on the pool area or internally in the building. And again, small closure, and then behind the curtains, the installers will be working, but the pool will open back up. So basically, we just scheduled this so that we don't have more than one community pool down at a time. And the pool maintains open basically 75% of the time of the project. And we're only closing for the demo where all the high traffic areas will be with the vendors, so. And then September 15th, we begin the 2-phase project approach for Kuntz parking lot mill and replacement. We will begin in the wood shop and western parking lot of Arts and Crafts. And we will mill that, prep the soils, and then put new asphalt in. And when that is complete, we will open that lot back up and then begin in the softball, swim and fitness front parking lot along R.H. Johnson. So we'll do a 2-phase approach. The project should take approximately 2 weeks. If there's any soil stabilization that's necessary, that would be the only reason to extend the project by a few days. And then after that, the remaining projects that were approved last year are pretty much scheduled to begin in the winter months with items such as environmental services office expansion, the greenhouse, the new greenhouse build, being my winter projects. And then when we get to spring, after high season of membership starts dwindling down in the April, May, we will then hit all of the final projects at Beardsley, which would be the wall decor and the pool flooring, the enclosure of the lobby, and then over to Palm Ridge with a wainscoting of the internal pool walls. So that's kind of the year that you should expect.
This is Marlee Kistler. I have a question, Carl. When you talked about cleaning up the floor decking around the pool over at Arch Johnson, are you talking about the stained areas there that are so dark? Okay.
Tom Jones, is there plans for the vacated village store facility area?
All right, Russ?
Okay, first I'm going to do the facilities operations update. During that time frame, we have deep cleaned exterior pool decks at Palm Ridge, Kuntz, and R.H. Johnson using a steam pressure washing unit. Beardsley is scheduled during the time that they're doing the lighting over there to take advantage of the closure. Accent wall painting and inspirational wall art added to the Palm Ridge Fitness Room. They installed 8 new speakers at the Palm Ridge Outdoor Pool. R.H. Johnson tennis and pickleball court cleaning. They installed new nets as needed. Lawn bowl bench repairs made, others have been scraped and painted. Clean Stardust Theater carpet utilizing company equipment and staff to reduce costs. Audio-visual improvements were made at Palm Ridge Summit Hall as well as R.H. Johnson Social Hall and Lecture Hall. Improvements in the governing board conference room are ongoing. So to go back to the deck cleaning, while we are closed at Johnson, there's spots that have popped up. We have a vendor coming in to repair those spots. But prior to that, they want to go back and clean that deck some more. So we're going to let them clean first, because while they're cleaning, they're finding all the loose stuff that needs to be repaired. So we'll hopefully get them all, and then when we get the vendor out, it'll all be sealed up get us through for a while. Facilities maintenance, during the metal shop, the facilities maintenance went in and did all the demolition to the side alley, the back shade structure, CNC building compressor room, and we painted this side wall to match the building as we couldn't get to it before. And then we also painted the side of the car wash as well. Painted the interior of Lizard Acres Pub. If you haven't been down there, you should go. It's very nice. We painted golf maintenance yards, Pebblebrook, Stardust, Grandview, Echo Mesa, and Desert Trails, and we still have 2 to finish. We installed 15 new wall sconces in both of the Coons courtyards. Reconstructed the membership payment window in the desk area. Racquetball wall replacement has been completed. For those of you that don't know, we had one section in one court where the panels that were installed 15 years ago started to peel away. So we had to have the entire wall replaced. Still don't know what caused it. It wasn't nothing of natural causes. So hopefully it'll outlast all of us. We replaced broken cast iron plumbing vent piping in the Grandview Pro Shop restroom. There's been reoccurring sewer smells. This was the last piece of the puzzle. Hopefully that problem goes away. That was a very extensive repair. We had to cut into the wall, replace all that plumbing, and then put the wall back together. We replaced cracked broken window at the Crooked Putter dining area. And then Palm Ridge, as Carl mentioned, we're in the process of replacing the walkway lighting, which right now we're at 60% complete. That's it.
Do we have any questions for Carl or Russ? Okay. Pete, it's your turn.
Thank you, Roberta, giving me the chance to explain some concepts you hear a lot about, reserve studies, reserve funds, so thank you for putting that on there. Couple terms to kind of go over first. Our funds are commingled in the reserve funds to address both repair and replacement of our equipment as well as new capital. The first component is, of course, the reserve study. And for replacement of our existing assets, our campus is continuously reviewed for items meeting that $5,000 threshold. This roster is a component of equipment, vehicles, asphalt, roofs, irrigation systems, courts, flooring, HVACs, IT, lighting. And so you can hear that it's a pretty extensive list, and there's over 1,200 identified items within this association's reserve study. On that reserve study component, each identified item has various components that derive an important function for us called the FFB, and I'll get to that in a second. But key components are the acquisition/installation date. We apply a useful life, estimated useful life, a current cost, and then an estimated replacement date. And then the program uses a formula that each item will produce what's called a fully funded balance, or FFB is the acronym. And an example of the FFB calculation is if we had a widget that cost $10,000 and it was given a 10-year life, Each year, a fully funded balance would establish $1,000, 10,000 divided by 10 years for each year of estimated life. So if after 3 years of use, a fully funded organization would have put $3,000 aside for the replacement of that widget, so that when the 10 years had expired, the funds would be available. 6 years would be 6,000, et cetera. And we do this on all 1,200 items and then calculate an aggregate FFP amount. And at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, that FFP amount was approximately $51 million. This is not a static document. Prices change, useful lives change, and as well as items are added and deleted. And plus, the FFP for replacing an item into the future has to account for inflation, and so we factor that into our equation as well. So then the counter side is the reserve funds. These funds are invested currently in 3 investment vehicles, stocks, bonds, and CD. The valuation of those reserve funds as of June 30th was approximately $29 million. And that $29 million is then measured against the FFB to establish a percentage of the FFB. And taking that $29 million against $51 million at the end of the year, we were approximately 57%. Again, I mentioned earlier that we do not have a separate and distinct amount set aside for new capital projects. So that approximately $29 million has to be evaluated for spending on new projects based upon the impact it will have on lowering the dollars available for just the repair and replacement of items. And the governing board addressed this topic last year by establishing an FFB percentage floor of 40%. And thus, at the end of this year, last year, our 57% was well above that floor. And that's the update I had for that component. Did you have any questions on that?
Anybody have any questions for Pete?
The second part, Carl and Russ addressed pretty completely, but if I understood the request correctly, was how much of the prior year, FY21, carried over. We use the term for that called encumbrance and established a liability within our balance sheet for that, and it was approximately $1.5 million. The biggest components were the metal shop renovation of about $600,000. Carl mentioned the swim and lockers, fitness rooms of about $175,000, and a myriad of other items. But I do not know of anything of the capital projects, which is to say Carl's items, that haven't already moved forward with some progress. But the only items that we're encumbering that don't have any issued POs yet would be some of the items in recreation, like pool supplies and things like that, given that there was such a low usage over the last year at some of our sites.
All right, any questions for Carl? Excuse me, for Pete? All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, do we have any comments from any of the committee members? Katie, is there anything from the audience? No. All right. If we have no further business, I will adjourn the
Roberta?
meeting. Yes.
Could I ask the gentleman's name that our guest here? Is this appropriate? You're the only one that showed up as a guest here, so would like to acknowledge you. Thank you for coming.
You want to give us your name, please? All right, thank you. Okay, no further business. I adjourn the meeting.